My name is Sarah Chen, and I've been a registered nurse in the intensive care unit at St. Michael's Hospital for 6 years. I work the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 3 nights a week. Most people think working nights in a hospital would be terrifying, but honestly, it's usually the opposite. It's quieter, calmer. The chaos of the day shift fades away, and you're left with the steady beep of monitors, the hum of ventilators, and the soft padding of your shoes on linoleum floors. But there are exceptions. There are nights that remind you why hospitals have always been places people fear, why every culture has ghost stories about the sick and the dying, why the boundary between life and death feels thinner in certain places. Room 7 is one of those places. When I first started at St. Michael's, I noticed something odd during orientation. The charge nurse, Patricia, a woman who'd been working nights for 23 years, walked us through the ICU layout, 12 rooms total, 6 on each side of the central nurses' station. She pointed out each one. Room 1, post-op cardiac. Room 2, trauma overflow. Room 3, neuro monitoring. She continued down the line, naming each room's typical use, the quirks of each space where supplies were kept. Then she paused. Room 7, she said, gesturing vaguely toward the end of the left corridor, is typically kept empty unless we're at maximum capacity. One of the new nurses, a guy named Marcus, asked why. Patricia's expression didn't change. Equipment issues, the call button is temperamental. Just avoid assigning patients there unless absolutely necessary. That was it, no elaboration. We moved on, but I noticed something in her eyes when she said it. A flicker. Like she was choosing her words very carefully. Like there was more to the story, but she wasn't about to tell a room full of newbies on their first day. For my first 3 months, room 7 stayed empty. I'd walk past it during rounds and the door would be closed, lights off, the small window dark. Sometimes I'd glance inside out of curiosity. Standard ICU room, hospital bed in the center, monitoring equipment on rolling carts, ventilator in the corner. Roman 4 poles, nothing unusual, nothing I could see anyway. It wasn't until late November during a particularly brutal flu season that we finally had to use it. We were completely full, every room occupied. Patients in the hallways on gurneys waiting for beds to open up. The ER was a disaster, ambulances kept coming. That night we admitted a 72-year-old woman named Margaret Holloway. Pneumonia, septic shock, multi-organ failure. She needed intensive monitoring, and room 7 was the only space available. Patricia assigned her there without comment, but I saw her jaw tighten. I took Mrs. Holloway as one of my patients that night. She was unconscious when she arrived, intubated, her vitals barely stable. Her daughter had come with the ambulance, a woman in her 40s named Diane, red-eyed and exhausted. I gave her the usual reassurances, explained what we were doing. Told her we'd keep her mother as comfortable as possible. Diane nodded, squeezed her mother's hand, and left around midnight. Visiting hours were long over, but we'd let her stay as long as she needed. She promised to come back first thing in the morning. After she left, I did my rounds, checked vitals, adjusted medications, documented everything. Mrs. Holloway's readings were holding steady. Not great, but stable. I dimmed the lights in room 7, checked that the monitors were functioning properly, and moved on to my other patients. Around 2 a.m., I was at the nurse's station charting when I heard it. The call button from room 7, a soft chime from the panel on the wall. The light above the room number lit up. I frowned. Mrs. Holloway was unconscious, intubated. She couldn't have pressed the call button. I walked down the corridor and pushed open the door to room 7. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it. Mrs. Holloway in the bed, motionless except for the mechanical rise and fall of her chest from the ventilator. Monitors beeping steadily. Roman 4 drip running. The call button was clipped to the bed rail untouched. I stepped inside, checked the equipment, scanned the room, nothing out of place. Mrs. Holloway, I said softly, more out of habit than expectation. Everything okay? No response. Of course not. I checked her pupils with my penlight, unresponsive, no change. I made a note in her chart and left, assuming the call button had malfunctioned. Patricia had mentioned it was temperamental, but 20 minutes later it happened again. Chime, light above room 7. I went back, same scene. Mrs. Holloway unchanged, call button untouched. This time I tested the button myself, pressed it. The chime sounded at the nurse's station, released it. The light turned off, pressed it again. Chime, it was working perfectly. I unplugged it from the bed and set it on the side table out of reach. If it was some kind of electrical short, that would solve it. 15 minutes later, the call button went off again. I stared at the panel on the wall. Room 7 lit up. My stomach tightened. I walked back down the corridor, slower this time, and opened the door. Mrs. Holloway was still unconscious. The call button was exactly where I'd left it, on the table, unplugged, but the light was on at the nurse's station. I stood there for a long moment, the hair on my arm standing up, trying to make sense of it. Equipment malfunction. Had to be. Old wiring, faulty panel. Hospitals are full of that stuff. I made a mental note to put in a maintenance request and left the room. For the next hour, the call button stayed silent. I almost convinced myself it was over. Then at 3:47 a.m. I heard something else, not the call button. Singing, faint, barely audible over the hum of the ventilator and the beeping monitors, but unmistakable. A woman's voice, soft and low, coming from room 7. I was halfway down the corridor before I even realized I was moving. My heart was pounding. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was impossible. Mrs. Holloway was intubated. She couldn't make a sound. I pushed open the door. The singing stopped. Mrs. Holloway lay exactly as before, motionless. The ventilator hissed and clicked. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm, but the room felt different, colder, not just cool from the air conditioning. Cold in a way that sank into your skin, the kind of cold that doesn't make sense in a climate-controlled hospital. I stepped inside, forcing myself to stay calm, to check everything methodically. Ventilator settings, oxygen saturation, heart rate, blood pressure, all stable. I adjusted the blanket over Mrs. Holloway's chest, checked the Roman 4 line, scanned the room one more time. Nothing. I left, pulling the door closed behind me, and stood in the hallway for a moment, breathing slowly, trying to steady myself. You're tired, I told myself. Night shift does this. Your brain plays tricks. You heard something from another room, or the ventilator made a noise that sounded like singing. That's all, but I didn't believe it. At 4:15 a.m., Mrs. Holloway's heart rate spiked. The alarm went off at the nurse's station. I grabbed the crash cart and ran to room 7. Her monitor showed a rapid, irregular rhythm. Ventricular tachycardia, not immediately fatal but dangerous. I paged the attending physician and started prepping for possible defibrillation, but as I stood next to the bed watching the monitor, her rhythm stabilized on its own. Slowed, returned to normal. The attending arrived 2 minutes later. Out of breath, I explained what happened. He checked her chart, examined her, reviewed the monitor strips. He frowned but couldn't find a clear cause. Could have been a response to infection, he said, electrolyte imbalance. We'd adjust her medications and keep a closer watch. He left. I stayed, and that's when I saw it. In the darkened window that looked out over the parking lot, there was a reflection, not mine, a woman, standing behind me. Older, with gray hair pulled back. Wearing a hospital gown. I spun around, no one there, just me, the empty room, Mrs. Holloway in the bed. I turned back to the window. The reflection was gone. My hands were shaking. I gripped the bed rail to steady myself. Okay, I whispered to myself. Okay, you need a break, you need coffee, you need to get out of this room. I walked out, my legs unsteady, and went straight to the break room. Poured a cup of coffee I didn't want, sat down, tried to breathe. Marcus, one of the other night shift nurses, came in a few minutes later. You good? He asked, looking at me. You're pale. Room 7, I said. His expression changed. What about it? Have you ever noticed anything weird about that room? He sat down across from me, didn't answer right away. Then he nodded slowly. Yeah, like what? Call button goes off when no one's in there, lights flicker. I had a patient in there once, totally stable. And he kept saying someone was standing in the corner watching him. Insisted on it. We moved him to room 4 and he was fine. Why doesn't anyone talk about it? Marcus shrugged. Because if you start talking about stuff like that in a hospital, people think you're losing it. And maybe we are. Night shift messes with your head. But yeah, room 7 is off. I didn't go back to that room for the rest of my shift unless I absolutely had to. I had another nurse check on Mrs. Holloway for me. I documented everything normally, kept my head down, and left the moment my shift ended at 7 a.m. Mrs. Holloway died 3 days later, quietly. Her organs failed despite our best efforts. Diane was with her at the end. I didn't work the night she passed, but I heard about it. The nurse who was there said it was peaceful. No alarms, no complications, she just slipped away. Room 7 went back to being empty after that, for a while. But here's the thing I didn't tell anyone, the thing I can't explain. The woman I saw in the reflection, the one standing behind me in the window, a week after Mrs. Holloway died, I was going through old staff photos in the break room. Pictures from hospital events, retirement parties, things like that. There's a bulletin board where people pin memories, and I saw her, the woman from the reflection. Her name was Evelyn Marsh. She'd been a nurse at St. Michael's for 30 years, worked nights in the ICU. She died in 1998 in room 7. Heart attack during her shift. They tried to save her, but she didn't make it. I asked Patricia about it later carefully, not wanting to sound crazy. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, Evelyn loved this job. She loved her patients. Maybe she just never left. I didn't know what to say to that. I still work nights at St. Michael's. Still walk past room 7. We use it now when we have to. Patients come and go. Most of them are fine. Some of them complain about the cold, about feeling watched, about hearing someone humming in the middle of the night. I don't dismiss them anymore because I know what they mean. And sometimes, late at night, when the ICU is quiet and I'm charting at the nurse's station, I'll glance down that corridor. And I'll see the light on in room 7, even when no one's in there, even when the door is closed, and I'll hear it again, that soft, familiar sound, singing. I tried to put room 7 out of my mind after that. I focused on my other patients, on the routines that kept me grounded, medication rounds, vital signs, documentation, the rhythm of the work. but the ICU has a way of pulling you back into the things you're trying to forget. 3 weeks after Mrs. Holloway died, we admitted another patient to room 7. His name was David Kowalski, 58 years old, massive stroke, brain bleed. The neurosurgeon had done what he could, but the prognosis wasn't good. David was in a coma, unresponsive, on full life support. His wife, Linda, stayed by his bedside every night until we gently told her she needed to go home and rest. She didn't want to leave him. "What if he wakes up?" she asked me, her voice breaking. "What if he wakes up and I'm not here?" I told her what I always tell families, that we'd call her immediately if anything changed, that he was in good hands, that she needed to take care of herself so she could be strong for him. She finally left around 1 a.m. I checked on David every hour. His vitals were stable, but there was no sign of improvement. The monitors showed minimal brain activity. The ventilator breathed for him. I adjusted his position to prevent bed sores, checked his Roman 4 lines, made sure everything was running smoothly. Around 3 a.m., I was at the nurse's station when I heard it again, the call button from room 7. My stomach dropped. I sat there for a moment, staring at the lit panel on the wall, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let someone else deal with it, but that wasn't an option. David was my patient. I stood up and walked down the corridor. The door to room 7 was slightly ajar. I was sure I'd closed it earlier. I always close the doors, it's habit, but now it was open about 6 inches and a sliver of light spilled into the hallway. I pushed it open the rest of the way. David was still in the bed, unchanged. The ventilator hissed. The monitors beeped. Everything looked normal, except for the chair. There was a chair next to the bed, the kind we keep in patient rooms for family members. Earlier in the night, it had been pushed against the wall, empty. Now it was pulled up close to the bed, angled toward David like someone had been sitting there. I stepped inside, my pulse quickening. "Hello?" I called softly, no answer. I checked the room, the bathroom, the corners, nothing, no one. I moved the chair back against the wall and checked David's vitals. Heart rate steady, blood pressure stable, oxygen saturation good. I reset the call button and turned to leave. That's when I noticed his hand. It was lying on top of the blanket, palm up, fingers slightly curled. I knew I hadn't positioned it that way. When I'd checked on him earlier, both his hands had been resting at his sides, but now his right hand was extended, open, like he was reaching for someone or like someone had been holding it. I stared at it for a long moment, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. Then I gently moved his hand back to his side, tucked the blanket around him, and left the room. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? That a comatose patient's hand had moved? That a chair had been repositioned? It sounded ridiculous even in my own head. But the next night, it happened again. Different nurse on duty, a woman named Clara who'd been at St. Michael's longer than I had. She mentioned it casually during handoff the next morning. "Room 7's call button keeps going off," she said. "I checked it 3 times, no idea what's causing it." "Did you notice anything else?" I asked carefully. She gave me a strange look. "Like what?" "I don't know, anything. Unusual?" She hesitated, then she nodded. "The chair was moved. I put it back against the wall twice, and both times the next time I went in, it was next to the bed again." We stared at each other. "It's that room," she said quietly. "Always has been." David died 4 days later, brain death. The family made the decision to withdraw life support. I wasn't there when it happened, but I heard it was quick, peaceful. Room 7 was empty again, but not for long. Over the next 2 months, we had 3 more patients in that room. All of them were critical. All of them died. That's not unusual in an ICU. People die. It's part of the job. You learn to cope with it, to compartmentalize, to understand that you did everything you could. But the pattern was unsettling. Every single patient in room 7 died, and every single one of them had the same strange occurrences. Call buttons going off when no one pressed them. Chairs being moved. Family members reporting that their loved ones seemed agitated in that room, even when unconscious. One man's daughter swore she heard her father whispering, even though he was intubated and sedated. He kept saying someone was in the room with him, she told me, tears streaming down her face. He kept saying she's here, she won't leave. I tried to comfort her, but I didn't know what to say because I'd started to believe it too. Evelyn Marsh was still here, and she was watching. I started asking questions, quietly, carefully, not wanting to sound like I'd lost my mind. I talked to older nurses who'd been around when Evelyn died. I found the incident report from 1998 buried in old hospital records. It happened on a Tuesday night. Evelyn had been doing rounds when she collapsed in room 7. Sudden cardiac arrest. The other nurses found her within minutes and started CPR. They intubated her, used the defibrillator, did everything right, but she didn't make it. The report noted that she'd been working a double shift that night. Exhausted, overworked. She'd probably been feeling symptoms for hours but didn't say anything. That was Evelyn, apparently. She never complained, never took breaks, always put her patients first, even when it killed her. One of the older nurses, a woman named Helen who was about to retire, told me more over coffee one afternoon. "Evelyn was the best nurse I ever worked with," Helen said. "She knew every patient's name, their families, their histories. She'd stay late to hold someone's hand if they were dying alone. She couldn't stand the thought of anyone being scared or lonely in their last moments. "Do you think she's still here?" I asked. Helen looked at me for a long time, then she nodded slowly. "I do, I've seen her," my breath caught. "Where?" "In room 7. I was working nights about 5 years ago. We had a young woman in there, car accident, brain injury. She was dying. Her family couldn't get there in time. I was with her, but I had to step out for a moment to get medication. When I came back, I saw someone sitting next to her bed. I thought it was a family member who'd snuck in after hours. But it wasn't. No, it was Evelyn. I recognized her. Same face, same gray hair, same hospital scrubs we used to wear back in the 90s. She was holding the girl's hand, and she was humming that song she always used to hum. I don't remember what it was called, but I'd know it anywhere. "What did you do?" I stood there frozen. I didn't know what to do, and then she looked up at me. She smiled, and she just faded like she was never there. "Did the girl?" "She died 10 minutes later, peacefully. No alarms, no distress, like she just went to sleep." Helen's eyes were wet. "Evelyn's still doing her job. She's still taking care of them, making sure they're not alone." I didn't know whether to find that comforting or terrifying, maybe both. A month ago, we admitted a man named Thomas Reed to room 7, 81 years old. End-stage heart failure. DNR order, no heroic measures. He was conscious when he arrived, barely, and he looked terrified. His son sat with him for a while, but eventually he had to leave. Work, responsibilities. He promised to come back in the morning. Thomas was alone. I checked on him around midnight. He was awake, his breathing labored, his eyes wide. "Are you in pain, Mr. Reed?" I asked gently. He shook his head. "She's here," he whispered. "Who's here?" "The nurse, the gray-haired one. She's been sitting with me." My skin went cold. "What does she look like?" "Kind. She looks kind. She keeps telling me it's okay, that I don't have to be afraid." I didn't know what to say. "She says her name is Evelyn." I felt my knees go weak. I pulled the chair over and sat down next to his bed, taking his hand. "Mr. Reed," I said carefully, "there's no one else in this room, just you and me." He smiled faintly. "I know what I see. She's real, and I'm not afraid anymore." He died 2 hours later. I was with him, holding his hand. His breathing slowed, became shallow, and then stopped. The monitor flatlined. I noted the time, disconnected the equipment, and covered him with a sheet. And as I stood there in the quiet room, I felt it. A presence, warm, gentle, not threatening, not frightening, just there. I turned slowly and looked at the chair next to the bed. For just a moment, I thought I saw her. Gray hair, kind eyes, a soft smile. And then she was gone. I left room 7 and closed the door behind me. I don't know if Evelyn Marsh is a ghost or an echo, or something my exhausted brain conjures up to make sense of the things I can't explain. I don't know if what I've seen and heard is real or just the product of too many nights spent in a place where death is always close. But I know this. Room 7 is never truly empty. And when I walk past it late at night, when the ICU is quiet and the only sound is the distant beep of monitors, I sometimes see the light on inside, and I hear it, that soft, gentle humming. The song Evelyn used to sing, and I like to think she's still there, still doing what she always did, making sure no one dies alone. My name is Marcus Webb, and for the last 4 years, I've been the night shift waitress at Betty's Diner on Route 27, about 15 miles outside of Carson Falls. It's one of those classic American diners, red vinyl booths, checkered floor, neon sign out front that flickers when it rains. We serve breakfast 24 hours a day, coffee that tastes like it was brewed in 1987, and pie that's actually pretty decent. Most people don't think much about diners like ours. We're the kind of place you stop at when you're driving through at 3 in the morning and need caffeine and eggs. Truckers, road trippers, people coming home from late shifts, insomniacs, the occasional drunk who shouldn't be driving but is anyway. We get all kinds, but some of our customers aren't like the others. Some of them have been coming here a very long time, longer than they should be able to. I started working at Betty's right after I dropped out of community college. Needed money, needed something to do with my nights since I couldn't sleep anyway. The owner, a woman named Dolores who actually bought the place from the original Betty back in 2003, hired me on the spot. "You ever waitress before?" she asked. "No. You good with people, I guess. You afraid of being alone?" I thought that was an odd question. "No, why?" she smiled. Not a warm smile, more like she knew something I didn't. "You'll be mostly alone from midnight to 6 a.m., just you and Ray in the kitchen. Sometimes we get customers, sometimes we don't. You okay with that?" "Yeah, that's fine. Good, you start Monday." That was 4 years ago. For the first few months, the job was exactly what I expected. Quiet, boring. The occasional trucker would come in, order coffee and eggs, leave a decent tip, and move on. Sometimes a group of teenagers would show up after a party, loud and obnoxious, but harmless. Ray, the night cook, was a man in his 60s who didn't talk much but made perfect hash browns every single time. It was easy work. Mindless, exactly what I needed. But around my third month, I started noticing things, small things at first. There was a regular who came in every Thursday night at exactly 2:15 a.m., an older man, maybe in his 70s, always wearing the same brown jacket and flannel shirt. He'd sit in booth 4, order black coffee and a slice of apple pie and read a newspaper. Not a phone, not a tablet, an actual newspaper, and it was always the same newspaper. The Carson Falls Gazette, dated October 14, 1987. I didn't notice the date at first, but after a few weeks I got curious. One night when he got up to use the restroom, I walked past his booth and glanced at the paper. October 14, 1987. I frowned. That didn't make sense. Where would someone even get a newspaper that old, and why would they carry it around? When he came back, I worked up the nerve to ask. "Excuse me, sir, I couldn't help but notice your newspaper. That's from 1987. He looked up at me with pale blue eyes, smiled. "That's right. Where did you get it?" "I've had it a long time." "Must be important." "It is." He tapped the front page. "This is the day I died." I laughed nervously, thought he was joking. "Sorry." He didn't laugh, just kept smiling that strange, calm smile. "Car accident, right out there on Route 27, head-on collision, killed instantly. October 14, 1987. My throat went dry. "That's not funny." "I'm not trying to be funny." I stepped back. "I should get back to work." "Of course. Could I get a refill on this coffee?" I refilled his cup with shaking hands and walked away. Told myself he was just some eccentric old guy messing with me. But when I looked back at booth 4 a few minutes later, he was gone. His coffee cup was still there, half full, still warm, but the newspaper was gone and he hadn't paid. I checked the parking lot, no cars except mine and Ray's truck. I went back inside and told Ray what happened. He didn't even look up from the grill. "Booth 4. Yeah, how did you?" "He comes in every Thursday, has for years, don't worry about him. He always leaves exact change under the saucer." I lifted the coffee cup. Underneath was $1.35, exact change for coffee and pie, from 1987. The coins were old, worn, the kind you don't see anymore. I stared at them for a long time. Ray finally looked at me. "You're gonna see things here, Marcus, things that don't make sense. Best thing you can do is just keep your head down and do your job. Don't ask questions, don't engage, just serve the coffee, take the money, and move on." "What do you mean I'm gonna see things?" He turned back to the grill. "You'll find out." I almost quit that night, almost walked out and never came back, but I didn't. I needed the money, and honestly, part of me didn't believe it. I convinced myself I'd misread the date on the newspaper, that the old man was just playing a prank, that Ray was messing with me because I was new. But the next Thursday at exactly 2:15 a.m., the old man came back, same booth, same order, same newspaper. This time I didn't talk to him. I just poured his coffee, brought his pie, and left him alone. He stayed for exactly 30 minutes, then he vanished, left the exact change under the saucer. Every Thursday for 4 years. He's not the only one. There's a woman who comes in every Saturday night around 3:30 a.m. She always sits at the counter, always orders a cup of tea and a grilled cheese sandwich, never eats it, just stares at it. Sometimes she cries. The first time I saw her, I asked if she was okay. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm waiting for my daughter." "Is she meeting you here?" She was supposed to, but she never came. "Maybe she's running late?" The woman shook her head. "She's been late for 32 years. I didn't know what to say to that. Ray told me later that the woman's daughter died in 1994, murdered by her boyfriend. The woman had been supposed to meet her here at the diner that night, but she was running late. By the time she arrived, her daughter was already gone. She's been coming back every Saturday since, waiting. Then there's the family in booth 6, a man, a woman, and 2 kids. They come in once a month, always on the first Friday. They order pancakes and bacon. They laugh and talk and seem completely normal, except they never age. I've been working here for 4 years. The kids should be teenagers by now, but every time they come in, they're the same age, maybe 8 and 10. Ray told me they died in a fire in 2001. Whole family. The diner was the last place they ate together before it happened. I didn't believe him at first, but then I looked up the news archives, found the story. House fire on Maple Street, Carson Falls. Family of 4 killed. June 2, 2001. The photos in the article match the family in booth 6. I stopped asking questions after that. I just pour coffee, take orders, and keep my mouth shut. Most nights, the diner is empty. Just me and Ray and the hum of the refrigerator and the buzz of the neon sign outside. But some nights, when the clock strikes 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, they start coming in. The regulars, the ones who shouldn't be here, they don't cause trouble. They don't hurt anyone. They just come in, order their food, sit quietly, and then disappear. I've gotten used to it. But last month, something happened that I can't explain. Something that made me realize this place is more than just a way station for ghosts. It was a Tuesday night. Slow. I'd only had 2 customers all night, both truckers, both long gone by midnight. Ray was in the back prepping for the morning shift. I was wiping down tables when the door chimed. I looked up. A man walked in, mid-30s, jeans and a t-shirt. He looked exhausted, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking. He sat down at the counter. "Coffee?" I asked. He nodded. I poured him a cup. He wrapped his hands around it like he was trying to absorb the heat. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't answer right away, just stared into the coffee. Then he said, "I don't know where I am. You're at Betty's Diner, Route 27. Route 27, he repeated like he was trying to remember something. I was driving, I was heading home, and then, I don't know, everything went white, and now I'm here. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What's your name?" I asked. Jake Ramsey." "Where were you heading, Jake?" "Home, to Carson Falls. I was coming back from a job site in Ridgewood. It's about an hour north." "What time did you leave?" "Around 11:30. I should have been home by now. My wife's probably worried." I glanced at the clock. "It was 2:45 a.m., Jake." I said carefully, "Do you remember anything unusual happening on the drive?" He frowned. "No, I mean it was dark, raining a little, the roads were slick, but I was being careful. I wasn't speeding or anything." Did you see anything? Another car? An animal?" He shook his head, then he paused. "Wait, there was a truck. It came out of nowhere, crossed the center line. I swerved. I remember swerving, and then..." He trailed off, and then what? "I don't know, I can't remember." I set the coffee pot down and pulled out my phone, opened the browser, searched for accident Route 27 tonight. The results loaded. Fatal collision on Route 27. 1 dead, Jake Ramsey. 34 of Carson Falls. Time of accident, 11:53 p.m. I stared at the screen. Jake was still sitting at the counter, sipping his coffee, completely unaware. I didn't know what to do. I'd served ghosts before, but they'd always known they were dead. They were stuck in their routines, their loops, their final moments, but Jake didn't know. He thought he was alive. "Jake," I said quietly. He looked up at me. "I think you need to call your wife." He pulled out his phone, tried to unlock it, frowned. "It's dead. Can I use your phone?" "Sure." I handed him mine. He dialed, held it to his ear, waited, then his face went pale. "What?" I asked. It's ringing, but it sounds wrong, like it's far away." He hung up, tried again, same thing. "I don't understand," he said. "Why can't I reach her?" I didn't answer. He stood up. "I need to go. I need to get home. She's probably freaking out." Jake. Wait, but he was already heading for the door. I watched him walk out into the parking lot, watched him look around, confused, like he was trying to figure out where his car was, and then he just faded like he'd never been there. I stood at the window for a long time, staring at the empty parking lot. Ray came out from the kitchen. "You all right?" "There was a guy, Jake Ramsey. He didn't know he was dead." Ray nodded slowly. "That happens sometimes. The ones who die suddenly, they don't realize right away. They come here because it's familiar, safe, and then they figure it out and they move on." "Where do they go?" Ray shrugged. "I don't know, somewhere else, somewhere they're supposed to be." I looked back at the counter. The coffee cup Jake had been drinking from was still there, but when I picked it up it was ice cold, like it had been sitting there for hours. I've thought about quitting a lot since that night. Thought about finding a normal job, a day shift somewhere. Somewhere the customers are alive and the tips are in bills printed after the year 2000. But I haven't, because I think I understand now why this place exists. Betty's Diner isn't just a restaurant, it's a threshold. A place between where we are and where we're going. And for people like Jake, like the old man with the newspaper, like the woman waiting for her daughter, it's a place to stop, to rest, to remember. Maybe eventually to let go. I still work the graveyard shift. I still pour coffee and serve pie and wipe down tables. And when the door chimes at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning and someone walks in who doesn't quite belong, I don't ask questions. I just smile, pour the coffee, and let them sit for as long as they need. Because sometimes the living and the dead need the same thing. A quiet place to rest, a warm cup of coffee, and someone who doesn't judge. My name is Marcus Reed, and I've been a janitor at Portland International Airport for 11 years. It's not glamorous work, but it's steady. The pay is decent, the benefits are good, and most nights I'm left alone to do my job in peace. I work the graveyard shift from midnight to 8 a.m., cleaning terminals after the last flights depart and before the morning rush begins. The airport is a different place at night. During the day, it's chaos. Thousands of people rushing through security, dragging luggage, arguing with gate agents, buying overpriced sandwiches. But after midnight, when the last passengers board their red eyes and the retail shops pull down their metal gates, the place transforms. It becomes quiet, empty, almost peaceful. I've always liked that about night work. The solitude, the rhythm. I put on my headphones, listen to podcasts, and move through the terminals with my cart. Vacuum the carpets. Empty the trash, clean the bathrooms, wipe down the seats in the gate areas. It's meditative in a way, but 6 months ago something changed. The airport reopened Terminal C. Terminal C had been closed for renovations for almost 3 years. It was the oldest section of the airport, built in the 1970s, and it showed. The carpets were worn, the ceilings leaked, and the whole place had a musty, forgotten smell. The renovation was supposed to modernize it, bring it up to code, make it look like the newer terminals. When it finally reopened in June, it looked great. Fresh paint, new flooring, updated gate areas with charging stations and comfortable seating. The airport held a little ceremony, cut a ribbon, and started routing flights through there again. But from the first night I had to clean it, I knew something was wrong. Terminal C felt different. I can't explain it better than that, it just felt off. The air was colder. Even though the HVAC system was brand new, the lighting seemed dimmer even though the fixtures were bright and modern. And there was this sound, this low hum that I couldn't quite place, like machinery running somewhere deep in the walls. I mentioned it to my supervisor, a guy named Ron who'd been with the airport for 20 years. Terminal C just got renovated, I said, but it feels weird in there. Ron gave me a look. Weird how? I don't know. Cold, empty. Like something's off, he shrugged. It's been closed for 3 years, probably just needs to air out, give it time. But it didn't get better, if anything, it got worse. The first incident happened 2 weeks after the terminal reopened. I was cleaning gate C7 around 3 in the morning. The gate was empty, as it should have been. The last flight had departed at 11:30 p.m., and the next arrival wasn't until 6 a.m. I was vacuuming the carpet when I heard it. Footsteps. Not the soft shuffle of someone walking casually. Heavy, purposeful footsteps, like someone was walking quickly, pulling luggage behind them. I turned off the vacuum and looked around. No one was there. The gate area was completely empty. Just rows of seats, the big windows overlooking the tarmac, and me. I stood there, listening. The footsteps continued, getting closer. I could hear the wheels of luggage rattling over the tile floor near the entrance to the gate. "Hello," I called out. The footsteps stopped. I waited, my heart pounding. Nothing. I walked toward the entrance, looked down the corridor. Empty, no one in sight. I told myself it was just the acoustics. Sound travels strangely in empty spaces. Maybe I'd heard something from another terminal, but I knew that wasn't true. The footsteps had been close, right next to me. I finished cleaning the gate and moved on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there, watching me. The next night, it happened again. Different gate, same footsteps, same sound of luggage wheels, same sudden stop when I called out. I started dreading my shifts in Terminal C, but it got worse. 3 weeks after the terminal reopened, I was cleaning the men's restroom near gate C12. It was around 2:30 a.m. I just finished mopping the floor when I heard a voice. "Excuse me." I spun around. A man was standing near the sinks, maybe in his 50s, business suit, tired eyes. He looked completely normal, completely real. "Sorry," I said. "Didn't realize anyone was in here. I'm just finishing up." He nodded. "No problem. I just need to wash my hands." I stepped back, letting him through. He walked to the sink, turned on the water, and began washing his hands. I gathered my supplies, getting ready to leave, when something occurred to me. How had he gotten past me? I'd been in the restroom for the past 10 minutes. The door hadn't opened. I would have heard it, and there were no other exits. I looked at him again. He was still washing his hands, methodically, over and over, the water running. "Hey," I said carefully. "What flight are you waiting for?" He didn't answer, just kept washing his hands. "Sir." He looked up, met my eyes in the mirror. His reflection was wrong. I can't describe it better than that. His face was there, but it was wrong. The features didn't quite line up. The eyes were too far apart. The mouth was at the wrong angle, and his reflection was smiling, even though he wasn't. I backed toward the door, my pulse racing. "I have to go," I said. He turned off the water, slowly turned to face me, and when he spoke, his voice was different, lower, hollow. "You shouldn't be here." I didn't answer. Just pushed through the door and walked quickly down the corridor, not looking back. When I glanced over my shoulder, the restroom door was closed. I didn't go back in. The next morning, I reported what happened to Ron, told him about the man in the restroom, the wrong reflection. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, "Marcus, you've been working nights for a long time. Sometimes your brain plays tricks on you. You get tired, see things that aren't there." I know what I saw. Maybe, but there's no one in Terminal C at that hour. Security cameras would have picked it up. "Can you check?" He sighed. "Fine, I'll pull the footage." 2 days later, he called me into his office. "I checked the cameras," he said. "From the time you entered the restroom to the time you left, there's no one else on the footage, just you. That's impossible." "Marcus, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying maybe you need a break. When's the last time you took a vacation?" "I don't need a vacation. I need you to believe me." "I do believe you saw something, but I don't think it was a person." "Then what was it?" He didn't answer, but I could see it in his eyes. He knew something he wasn't telling me. I couldn't let it go. Whatever was happening in Terminal C, it wasn't just exhaustion or my imagination. Something was there, and I needed to know what. I started doing research, digging into the terminal's history, talking to longtime employees, looking for anything that might explain what I was experiencing. What I found made everything worse. Terminal C wasn't just old. It was built on a bad foundation, literally and figuratively. In 1974, when the terminal was under construction, there had been an accident, a structural collapse during the build. 3 workers were killed, crushed under falling concrete and steel. The construction company covered it up, paid off the families, and kept building. The terminal opened on schedule in 1976, but from the beginning, there were problems. Passengers complained about the temperature, about strange sounds, about feeling watched. Gate agents reported equipment malfunctions, lights flickering, intercoms activating on their own. Planes parked at certain gates would have unexplained mechanical issues. By the early 2000s, the airport had quietly started routing fewer flights through Terminal C. They blamed aging infrastructure, but the truth was simpler. People didn't like being there. And then in 2019, something happened that forced the airport to shut it down entirely. A passenger died. A man named Richard Osborne, age 58, collapsed at gate C9 while waiting for his flight. Heart attack. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but they couldn't revive him. He was pronounced dead at the scene. That alone wouldn't have been enough to close the terminal. People have medical emergencies at airports all the time, but what happened afterward was different. For 3 weeks following Richard Osborne's death, passengers and staff reported seeing him, walking through Terminal C, sitting at gates, standing near the windows overlooking the tarmac. Multiple people, multiple sightings, all describing the same man, same gray suit, same brown briefcase. Security reviewed footage, found nothing, but the reports kept coming. The airport decided it was time to renovate, to gut the terminal, replace everything. Maybe they thought a fresh start would help. It didn't, because you can't renovate away the past. I learned all of this from an older custodian named Earl who'd worked at the airport since the 80s. He'd cleaned Terminal C for years before it closed. They thought new paint and carpet would fix it, Earl told me over coffee one night. But that place has always been wrong. Since the day it opened, those men who died during construction, they never left, and neither did anyone else who died there. How many others? I asked. More than you'd think. A few heart attacks over the years, a suicide in the 90s. Guy jumped from the upper level, and then there's the ones we don't talk about. What do you mean? Earl hesitated. There's a service corridor behind Terminal C, gate C15. It's been locked since the renovation. But before that, maintenance workers used to avoid it. Said they'd hear voices down there, see shadows. A few people quit because of it. Did you ever go down there? Once, that was enough. What did you see? He met my eyes. Nothing, and that's what scared me, because I could feel them all around me, but I couldn't see anything. Just cold, just emptiness. Just this sense that I wasn't supposed to be there. Why didn't anyone do anything? Were they supposed to do? Call a priest, an exorcist? This is an airport, Marcus, a business. You can't exactly shut down operations because the place is haunted. So they just let it keep happening? They closed it for renovation. Hoped that would be enough, but I'm guessing it wasn't. He was right. After talking to Earl, I couldn't stop thinking about the service corridor. Gate C15, the locked door, I knew where it was. I'd walked past it dozens of times. There was a plain gray door marked Authorized Personnel Only near the end of Terminal C. I'd never tried to open it, wasn't part of my assignment, but now I needed to know what was behind it. 2 nights later, around 3 a.m., I made my decision. I finished my assigned areas, then walked to Gate C15. The terminal was empty, silent, just the hum of the HVAC and the distant sound of plane taxiing on the runway. I stood in front of the grate. There was a keycard reader next to it. I pulled out my access card, the one that opened most maintenance areas, and swiped it. The light turned green, the lock clicked, I pushed the door open. Cold air rushed out, not refrigerator cold, not air conditioning cold, something deeper, the kind of cold that gets into your bones. I stepped inside. The corridor was narrow, concrete walls, exposed pipes running along the ceiling. A single row of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but only half of them were working, leaving stretches of shadow between pools of dim light. It smelled wrong, damp, stale, like a basement that hadn't been opened in years. I walked slowly, my footsteps echoing off the walls. The corridor stretched about 50 feet, then took a sharp turn to the right. I followed it, more concrete, more pipes, more shadows, and then I heard it, voices, not loud, not close, but distinct. Multiple voices talking over each other, like a crowded room somewhere far away. I stopped, listened. The voices didn't get louder or softer, they stayed constant. A low murmur, just beyond the edge of understanding. I kept walking. The corridor ended at another door. This one had no keycard reader, just a handle. I reached for it, hesitated. Every instinct told me to turn around, to leave, to never come back, but I needed to know. I opened the door. The room beyond was small, maybe 10 by 10 feet, empty except for a metal shelf on one wall and a ladder leading up to a hatch in the ceiling. The voices were louder here, coming from above. I looked up at the hatch. It wasn't locked, just a simple latch. I climbed the ladder, pushed the hatch open. Cold air poured down, and with it the voices, clear now, distinct. People talking, laughing, crying, calling for help, all at once, all layered on top of each other. A cacophony of sound that made my head throb. I pulled myself up through the hatch and found myself standing in Terminal C, but not the Terminal C I knew. This one was different. The gates were the same. The layout was the same, but the details were wrong. The carpet was the old pattern, the 1970s design. The seats were the original vinyl ones that had been replaced decades ago. The departure boards were the old mechanical ones, the kind that flipped with a clicking sound, and the terminal was full of people. Passengers sitting at gates, walking through corridors, talking on payphones, reading newspapers, waiting, but none of them moved right. They were stuck in loops, repeating the same actions. A woman standing at a window, looking out, turning away, looking out again. A man checking his watch, looking at the departure board, checking his watch. A child running in a circle over and over, and none of them saw me. I walked through the terminal, my heart pounding, trying to understand what I was seeing. These weren't ghosts, not in the traditional sense, they were echoes, moments trapped in time, playing on repeat. I reached gate C9, the gate where Richard Osborne had died. He was there, sitting in a chair, gray suit, brown briefcase, staring at the departure board. I approached slowly. "Mr. Osborne?" He didn't respond. "Richard," his head turned, just slightly. His eyes met mine. And for a moment he was present, aware. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Where is here? Between, this is where we wait." "Wait for what?" "To leave, but we can't. Something's holding us." "What?" He looked toward the corridor, the one I'd just come from. "The door, it's always been open, since the beginning, and it won't close." "The door to what?" "To whatever comes after. It's broken, stuck, and we're stuck with it." Before I could respond, the terminal flickered. Like a light bulb about to burn out. The passengers, the old carpet, the mechanical departure boards, all of it flickered in and out. And in the spaces between I saw something else. Darkness, movement, shapes that didn't have form. Something was in here with them, something that wasn't human, wasn't ever human, and it was feeding on them. I ran back to the hatch, down the ladder, through the corridor, out the gray door. I didn't stop until I was back in the main terminal. The modern, clean, normal terminal. I locked the gray door behind me, but I knew it didn't matter. The door Richard Osborne was talking about wasn't one you could lock with a key. I didn't go back to Terminal C after that night. I called in sick for 3 days. Told Ron I had the flu. He didn't push, just told me to rest and come back when I was ready. But I wasn't ready. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen, the passengers trapped in that in-between place, the thing moving among them in the darkness. Richard Osborne's words, "The door, it's always been open." I needed to understand. I spent those 3 days researching, not just the terminal, but the location itself, the land the airport was built on. What I found didn't surprise me. It confirmed what I'd suspected. Before the airport existed, before the city expanded this far, the area had been used for something else. A cemetery, not a modern one. An old potter's field from the late 1800s. A place where they buried people who had no money, no family, no name. Criminals, drifters, the forgotten. When the city grew and the airport was planned in the 1960s, they relocated most of the bodies, but not all, because potter's fields don't keep good records. And when you're burying hundreds of nameless people, some get lost. Terminal C was built directly over a section of the old cemetery that was never fully excavated. The construction workers who died in 1974, they weren't the first deaths on that ground, they were just the most recent. And when Richard Osborne died at Gate C9 in 2019, whatever door existed between life and death in that place opened a little wider. Now it couldn't close. On my 4th day off, I got a call from Ron. "Marcus, you coming back?" "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know? You need this job. I can't work Terminal C anymore." Silence. Then Ron said, "What did you see?" "You already know." "Marcus, you know, Ron, you've always known. That's why you kept me out of there for as long as you could. That's why you didn't want to pull the security footage, because you knew what I'd see, or rather, what I wouldn't see." He sighed. "Yeah, I know. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Would anyone? So what do? Nothing. We keep cleaning, we keep the lights on, we keep the place running, because shutting it down didn't help, renovating didn't help, nothing helps. There has to be something. Like what? You can't tear down an airport, you can't relocate a terminal, and you can't close a door that was never meant to be opened in the first place. So we just let it keep happening. Let people get trapped there. They're already dead, Marcus. We're not trapping them. They're trapping themselves, or something else is. Either way, there's nothing we can do." I hung up, but Ron was wrong. There was something I could do. That night I went back to the airport, not for my shift. Earlier, around 8 p.m., while flights were still active and Terminal C was full of passengers, I walked through the terminal watching people, normal people, living people. Waiting for their flights, buying coffee, texting on their phones. None of them knew. None of them could feel what I felt, the cold, the weight, the sense that something was watching from just beyond the edge of perception, but it was there. And if I didn't do something, eventually someone else would die here. Another heart attack, another medical emergency, and they'd join the others, trapped in that in-between place. I found Gate C9, the gate where Richard Osborne had died. I sat down and waited. Hours passed. The flights departed. The passengers thinned out. By midnight, Terminal C was empty again. I walked to the gray door near Gate C15. This time I didn't hesitate. I opened it, walked down the corridor, climbed the ladder, pushed open the hatch. The old Terminal C was waiting. The passengers were there, stuck in their loops. Richard Osborne sat at Gate C9, staring at the departure board. I walked over to him. "I need your help," I said. He looked at me. "You came back." "I did, and I think I know how to close the door. It can't be closed. Maybe not by you, but I'm still alive. I can move between both places. I can reach the door from the other side." He studied me. "It won't let you." "The thing in the darkness?" He nodded. "Then we'll have to deal with it." I don't know why I said that. I had no plan. No idea how to fight something I couldn't see or understand, but I couldn't leave them there. Show me where the door is, I said. Richard stood. For the first time since I'd seen him, he moved beyond his loop. He walked toward the corridor. The other passengers watched, silent, waiting. We went down the corridor together, back to the small room with the ladder, but instead of going down, Richard pointed up. The door isn't below, he said, it's above. I looked up. The ceiling of the hatch room was higher than I'd thought, and in the darkness above I could see something, a shape, an opening like a wound in reality, and around it the darkness moved. That's it, Richard said, that's what's holding us. I stared at it, the door, the threshold, the thing that shouldn't exist. How do I close it? I don't know, but if you try, it will fight you. I know. I climbed the ladder, higher than before, reaching toward the opening. The cold intensified. My breath fogged in front of me. My hands went numb, and then I felt it, the thing in the darkness. It wasn't just watching anymore, it was aware of me, and it was angry. The darkness surged. I felt pressure on my chest, on my throat, like invisible hands trying to pull me in, but I kept climbing. I reached the opening. It wasn't physical, not something I could touch, but I could feel its edges, its boundaries, and I understood. The door wasn't stuck open. It was being held open by the thing in the darkness, by whatever had been feeding on the trapped souls for decades. I couldn't close the door while it was there. I had to make it leave. I thought about the passengers, about Richard Osborne, about the construction workers from 1974, about everyone who died here and couldn't move on, and I made a choice. This isn't your place, I said into the darkness. These people don't belong to you. The pressure increased. I could barely breathe. You have no power here, not anymore. I don't know if it was the words or the intent behind them, but something shifted. The darkness recoiled, just for a moment, but it was enough. I reached into the opening and pulled, not with my hands, with something else. Will, intent, whatever force exists in living people that the dead don't have anymore. The edges of the opening began to close. The darkness screamed. I'd never heard anything like it. Not a sound you hear with your ears. A sound you feel in your bones, in your soul, but I didn't let go. I kept pulling. The opening grew smaller. The darkness thrashed. The cold became unbearable, and then all at once it was gone. The door closed. The darkness vanished. The cold lifted. I climbed down the ladder, gasping, my whole body shaking. Richard was standing there, staring at me. It's done, I said. He looked up, toward where the opening had been. I can feel it. He whispered, the way forward, it's open now. One by one, the other passengers appeared, filling the small room, dozens of them, all looking up, and then they began to fade, not disappearing, not vanishing, leaving. Richard was the last. He looked at me one more time. Thank you, he said, and then he was gone. I stood there alone in the corridor for a long time. Then I climbed back down the ladder, walked out of the room, and locked the gray door behind me. Epilogue: I still work at Portland International Airport. Still clean the terminals, still work the graveyard shift, but Terminal C is different now. The cold is gone, the strange sounds have stopped. The passengers who come through no longer complain about feeling watched. It's just a terminal, normal, quiet, exactly what it should have been all along. I never told anyone what happened that night. What would I say? That I closed a supernatural doorway in an airport maintenance corridor, but I know the truth. And sometimes, late at night when I'm cleaning gate C9, I pause, and I think about Richard Osborne, about Earl's warnings, about the passengers trapped in between, and I'm grateful, because I helped them leave. And I made sure no one else would get stuck there. My name is Jade Morrison, and I've been working the overnight shift at FitLife 24/7 gym for 2 years. It's a chain gym on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado, one of those massive facilities with 3 floors of equipment, basketball courts, a pool, and enough treadmills to outfit a small army. During the day, it's packed. Busy professionals squeezing in workouts before heading to the office. Stay-at-home parents taking advantage of the childcare center. College students looking to bulk up or slim down. Personal trainers shouting motivational phrases at their clients. But at night, the place transforms completely. After 10 p.m., the crowd thins dramatically. The families disappear. The trainers go home. The music gets turned down. By midnight, when my shift officially starts, there are usually only a handful of members left. Die-hard bodybuilders who prefer working out without the daytime crowd. Insomniacs who can't sleep and figure they might as well exercise. Night shift workers from nearby hospitals and warehouses getting in a workout before or after their jobs. My role is simple. I sit at the front desk near the main entrance, check in members as they arrive, scan their membership cards, answer basic questions about hours and facilities, make sure no one's passed out on the elliptical or trapped in the locker room, and call the police or paramedics if anything goes seriously wrong. The pay is $14 an hour, plus a small raise I negotiated after my first year. The benefits are decent enough. Health insurance, free gym membership, and most importantly, I'm left alone for most of the shift. I spend the quiet hours studying for my online degree, watching Netflix on my laptop, or scrolling through social media. Sometimes I walk the floors doing wellness checks. making sure equipment is functioning and members aren't having medical emergencies. But mostly I just sit at the desk and exist in the strange liminal space of a building designed for activity, but occupied by only a few silent, focused people. It's easy work, boring, even predictable, or at least it was, until about 6 months ago when I started noticing the patterns. Specifically the 3 a.m. crowd. They come in like clockwork. Between 2:45 and 3:15 a.m., every single night a specific group of people arrives at the gym. Not together exactly. They don't come in as a group, don't acknowledge each other, don't seem to even notice one another. They arrive separately, spaced out by a few minutes, each one following their own precise schedule. At first, I didn't think much of it. Regular gym members develop routines. They come at the same time every day, do the same exercises in the same order, use the same equipment, leave at the same time. Humans are creatures of habit. It's normal, especially for serious fitness enthusiasts who track their progress meticulously and don't like variation in their training schedules. But these people were different. Something about them felt off from the very beginning, even before I understood why. There was a man I came to call Treadmill Guy in my mental notes. He looked to be in his mid-40s, with an athletic build, short dark hair graying at the temples, and a perpetually blank expression. He always wore the same outfit, a black tank top, gray athletic shorts, white running shoes that looked brand new despite what must have been hundreds of hours of use, and white crew socks. Every detail was identical night after night. He'd arrive at exactly 2:50 a.m., not 2:48. Not 2:52, 2:50. I started timing it after the first week. He'd walk through the front door, pull his membership card from his pocket without breaking stride, scan it at the turnstile with practiced efficiency, and give me a single slight nod. He never spoke, never smiled, never showed any emotion whatsoever on his face. Then he'd head straight to the stairwell and climb to the second floor, where the cardio equipment was located. I knew from my rounds that he went directly to treadmill number 7. Always number 7, even if other treadmills were available and closer. He'd step onto it, start it up, and begin running. He'd run for exactly 60 minutes. I know this because I checked the machine's display panel once during my 3 a.m. rounds, curiosity getting the better of me. The settings were always identical, 6.5 miles per hour, 2% incline. No variation in interval training or speed work. Just a steady, consistent pace maintained for the full hour. His form was perfect. His breathing was even. His stride never faltered. At exactly 3:50 a.m., he'd stop, step off the treadmill, wipe it down with the provided sanitizing wipes, and leave. I'd see him walk past the front desk, through the turnstile, and out into the parking lot. He never used the locker room, never stopped at the water fountain, never deviated from the routine by even a single second. Then there was weight room woman. She appeared to be in her early 30s, extremely fit, with blonde hair always pulled back in a perfect high ponytail. She wore a purple sports bra, black leggings, and cross-training shoes. Same outfit every night like Treadmill Guy. I started wondering if they even owned other clothes or if these were the only workout outfits they had. She'd arrive at precisely 3 a.m., scan her card without looking at me, and head up to the third floor where the free weights were located. During my rounds, I'd watch her from a distance. She'd load the same barbell with the same weight, perform the same number of sets and reps on bench press, move to squats with the exact same weight and rep scheme, then finish with deadlifts following the identical pattern. Her form was textbook perfect. Too perfect, really. Most people, even experienced lifters, have small variations in their technique. A slight shift in foot position, a different grip width on different days, fatigue affecting the last few reps, but weight room woman moved like a machine. Every rep was identical to the one before. Every set was completed with the same tempo. She never rested between sets for longer or shorter than exactly 90 seconds. I timed it once. 90 seconds on the dot, then back to the next set. When she finished at 3:50 a.m., she'd rack all her weights with meticulous care, wipe down the equipment, and leave. No stretching, no cool down, just done and gone. And finally, there was Pool Man. He was older, maybe in his mid-60s, completely bald with a neatly trimmed gray beard. He had the lean, sinewy build of a lifelong swimmer. He'd arrive at 3:10 a.m., scan his card with a weathered hand that showed prominent veins and age spots, and head directly to the men's locker room to change. 5 minutes later, he'd emerge in the same black Speedo swim trunks and walk to the pool area on the first floor. I could see him on the security monitors from my desk. He'd enter the water without any warm-up stretches, without testing the temperature, without any of the usual preliminaries. Just a clean dive into lane 3, and then he'd begin swimming laps. His stroke was flawless. A smooth, efficient freestyle that barely disturbed the water's surface. He'd swim for exactly 45 minutes, maintaining the same pace throughout, never pausing at the wall for more than the brief moment needed to execute his flip turn. At 3:55 a.m., he'd exit the pool, return to the locker room, and emerge 5 minutes later in his street clothes, hair still damp. Like the others, he'd leave at exactly 4 a.m., a.m., all 3 of them gone by 4 a.m. every single night. For the first month, I simply observed this pattern with mild curiosity. Dedicated gym members, I thought. People with disciplined routines and specific fitness goals. A little odd, maybe, but not concerning. But then I started noticing the other details. The things that didn't add up. They never made eye contact with anyone. Not with me, not with each other, not with the handful of other members who were occasionally in the gym at that hour. They moved through the space as if they were completely alone, as if the building existed solely for them and everyone else was invisible. They never drank water, not during their workouts, not after. I never saw any of them carry a water bottle or stop at the fountain. For intense hour-long workouts, that was unusual. Most people need to hydrate. They never adjusted anything. Not their clothes, not their hair, not their equipment settings beyond the initial setup. Treadmill guy never retied his shoes. Weight room woman never adjusted her ponytail. Pool man never cleared water from his goggles. It was like they existed in a state of permanent readiness, never experiencing the small physical discomforts that affect normal people during exercise, and most unsettling of all, they never changed. Same clothes, same routines, same timing, same everything. Day after day, week after week, month after month. No variation. No progression. No signs of improvement or fatigue or injury or any of the normal fluctuations that happen to people who work out regularly. They were like ghosts going through the motions of life, except they had physical form. They scanned real membership cards. They used real equipment. They left real footprints in the condensation around the pool. But something about them wasn't right. After 6 weeks of observations, I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have done. I accessed their membership records. I pulled up Treadmill Guy's account first. The system required my employee login, and technically I was only supposed to access member records when there was a specific need related to facility operations or customer service. Looking someone up out of pure curiosity violated privacy policies, but I needed to know. Name, David Brennan. Date of birth, July 12, 1977. Join date, March 15, 2019. Membership type, annual commitment. Last payment, March 15, 2021. Account status, expired. I stared at the screen, confused. His membership had expired almost a year ago, but he was still coming in, every single night. Scanning his card at the turnstile without any issues, the system giving him a green light and letting him through. I checked weight room woman next. Name, Rachel Cortez. Date of birth, September 3, 1989. Join date, January 8, 2018. Membership type, month to month. Last payment, February 10, 2020. Account status, expired. Her membership had been expired even longer, more than 18 months. Pool man was the same. Name, Thomas Hart. Date of birth, April 22, 1957. Join date, August 3, 2017. Membership type, annual commitment. Last payment, August 3, 2020. Account status, expired. All 3 of them had expired memberships. All 3 were still coming in, and somehow the turnstile system was letting them through despite their accounts being flagged as inactive. This didn't make sense. Our system was computerized and supposedly foolproof. When a membership expired, the card should be automatically deactivated. The scanner should reject it, flash a red light, and prevent entry. Members would then have to come to the desk and renew before gaining access. But these 3 were passing through every night without any problem. I made a note to call my manager in the morning. This was above my pay grade to handle. Possibly a major system glitch that was costing the company money if expired members were accessing the facility without paying. But when I tried calling Kyle, my daytime manager, the next afternoon before my shift, he sounded skeptical. "Are you sure they're not just scanning guest passes?" he asked. "No, they're definitely using membership cards. I see them scan the same cards every night. And the system lets them through?" "Yes, green light every time." He was quiet for a moment. "That shouldn't be possible. If the accounts are expired, the turnstiles should reject them automatically." "I know, that's why I'm calling. Can you check the system on your end?" "I'll take a look and get back to you." He called me back an hour later. "Okay, this is weird. I pulled up all 3 accounts. They show as expired in our database. I even ran a diagnostic on the turnstile system. Everything checks out. Those cards shouldn't work. But they do. I watch them scan in every night. Can you take a video next time? I need to see this to believe it." "Sure, I guess." That night, I positioned my phone on the desk with a clear view of the turnstiles. At 2:50 a.m., Treadmill Guy arrived. I started recording. He walked through the door, pulled out his card, scanned it. The light on the turnstile turned green. The mechanical arm rotated, letting him through. He walked past without looking at me or the camera. I stopped the recording and texted it to Kyle. His response came 5 minutes later. "I'm coming in tonight. Need to see this in person." Kyle showed up around 2:30 a.m., unusual for him since he normally worked 9 to 5. He looked tired, probably disrupting his sleep schedule to be here. We sat together at the front desk, waiting. At 2:50 a.m., right on schedule, David Brennan walked through the door. Treadmill Guy, Same black tank top, same gray shorts, same expressionless face. Kyle watched intently as the man approached the turnstile, scanned his card, and walked through after the green light appeared. Okay, that's definitely weird, Kyle muttered, pulling up the system on the desk computer. His account is showing as expired. There's no reason that should have worked. Told you, let me talk to him, something's not right here. Kyle stood up and moved quickly toward the stairwell, intercepting treadmill guy before he could ascend. Excuse me, sir, can I speak with you for a moment? The man stopped, slowly turned to face Kyle. His eyes were fixed on Kyle's face, but they seemed to look through him rather than at him. Sir, I'm the facility manager. I need to discuss your membership status with you. No response, just that blank, empty stare. Your membership expired over a year ago, Kyle continued, clearly uncomfortable with the man's silence. I'm going to need you to come to the front desk and renew before you can use the facilities tonight. Still nothing, not even a blink. Kyle reached out hesitantly to touch the man's shoulder, perhaps to guide him back to the desk. Sir, if you could just, his hand passed through the man's shoulder, not around it, not off it, through it, like the man was made of smoke or mist or nothing at all. Kyle jerked his hand back, stumbling backward into the wall, his face draining of color. What the? Treadmill guy turned away as if nothing had happened and continued toward the stairs. His footsteps echoed normally on the floor. He seemed solid, real, but Kyle's hand had passed right through him. Did you see that? Kyle whispered, his voice shaking. Did you see that? I saw it, I confirmed, my own heart pounding. His shoulder, my hand went through, he's not. I know. Kyle stared after the man who had disappeared into the stairwell. This isn't possible. This isn't real. I'm going crazy. We're both going crazy. We both saw the same thing, I said. We can't both be hallucinating. At 3 a.m., Rachel Cortez walked through the door, weight room woman. Kyle and I watched as she scanned her expired card, got a green light, and walked through the turnstile. Kyle didn't try to intercept her, just watched with wide eyes as she headed to the stairs. At 3:10 a.m., Thomas Hart arrived, pool man, same routine, green light, access granted. Kyle turned to me, his face pale. I'm calling corporate. This is beyond anything I can handle. I don't even know what this is. What are you going to tell them? I don't know, the truth, I guess, that we have members with expired accounts who can somehow still access the facility, that I tried to touch one of them and my hand went through him like he was a ghost. They're going to think you're insane. Maybe I am, maybe we both are. He grabbed his jacket from where he draped it over a chair. I can't stay here. I'm sorry, Jade, I can't. I need to leave. Kyle, wait, but he was already heading for the door, practically running. He left the building and drove away, leaving me alone with whatever these things were. After Kyle fled, I sat at the desk for a long time trying to process what I'd witnessed. My rational mind wanted to find a logical explanation, a trick of the light, a misperception, exhaustion causing a shared hallucination, but I knew what I'd seen. Kyle's hand had passed through a solid-looking man's shoulder. That wasn't a trick or a mistake. These people weren't people anymore, if they ever had been. I pulled up the security monitors and checked the cameras. Second floor, cardio area. There was David Brennan on treadmill number 7, running his perfect mechanical pace. Third floor, weight room. Rachel Cortez performing bench presses with flawless form. First floor, pool area. Thomas Hart swimming steady laps. They looked normal on camera. Solid, real, using real equipment that responded to their touch. But they weren't real. They couldn't be. I made a decision. I needed to know more about these people, who they really were, what had happened to them. I started with David Brennan, pulled up a search engine on my phone and typed in his name plus Denver and Fit Life. The results loaded. The first hit was an obituary from March 2021. David Christopher Brennan, 43 of Denver, Colorado, passed away suddenly on March 23, 2021. David was an avid runner and fitness enthusiast who spent many early mornings at his local gym. He died doing what he loved, running on his favorite treadmill at FitLife 24/7 gym, where he was a dedicated member for over 2 years. He is survived by his wife, Jennifer, and 2 children. My hands started shaking. I clicked to the next search result, a local news article from the same date. Local man dies of heart attack at gym. A 43-year-old Denver man suffered a fatal heart attack while exercising at FitLife 24/7 gym on Chambers Road early Tuesday morning. David Brennan collapsed on a treadmill around 3:30 a.m. Despite immediate CPR from gym staff and paramedics, he could not be revived. The gym has since issued a statement expressing condolences to the family. I felt cold. He had died here, at this gym, on a treadmill, around 3:30 in the morning. Just like he appeared now every night, running until exactly 3:50 a.m., with trembling fingers I searched for Rachel Cortez next. Her obituary came up immediately. Rachel Marie Cortez, 31, passed away tragically on February 15, 2020, in a weightlifting accident at FitLife 24/7 gym. Rachel was passionate about fitness and strength training. She is remembered for her dedication, positive attitude, and the inspiration she provided to others in the fitness community. She is survived by her parents, Maria and Carlos Cortez, and her sister, Elena. Another news article provided more details. Woman dies in gym weight accident. A 31-year-old woman died Monday after a loaded barbell fell on her chest during a bench press exercise at FitLife 24/7 gym. Rachel Cortez was working out alone in the early morning hours when the accident occurred. No one witnessed the incident. She was discovered by gym staff during a routine check around 3:45 a.m. and was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 for 2. Both of them had died here, at this gym, during their workouts in the early morning hours. I already knew what I would find when I searched for Thomas Hart, but I had to confirm it. His obituary was from August 2020. Thomas Edward Hart, 63, longtime Denver resident and Masters competitive swimmer, died August 8, 2020. Thomas suffered a heart attack while swimming at FitLife 24/7 gym and could not be resuscitated. He was passionate about swimming and held several age group records in the 60-64 division. The pattern was clear. All three of them had died at this gym, during their regular workout routines, in the middle of the night when few other people were around, and now they were back every night. At the exact times they used to come when they were alive, finishing their workouts, repeating their routines, unable to stop, unable to leave. They were ghosts, had to be. But ghosts that could somehow interact with physical systems. Scan membership cards, use equipment, appear on security cameras. I didn't know if they were aware of their situation, if they knew they were dead, if they could even perceive the world around them, or if they existed in some kind of loop, replaying their final routines over and over for eternity. At 3:50 a.m., I watched the monitors as all three of them finished their workouts at the exact same time. David Brennan stepped off treadmill 7. Rachel Cortez re-racked her weights. Thomas Hart climbed out of the pool. They moved through the building toward the exit. I watched them approach the front desk area on the security feed, then looked up to see them in person. One by one, they walked past me. David first, then Rachel, then Thomas. None of them looked at me. None of them showed any awareness of my presence. They walked through the turnstiles and out the front door into the parking lot. I watched through the windows as they headed to different areas of the lot, toward where cars should be, but there were no cars. The parking lot was empty except for my vehicle. I watched them walk to empty spaces, make the motions of opening car doors, and then simply fade away. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, dissolved into the night air. I sat back down, my heart racing, trying to make sense of it all. Kyle called in sick the next day, and the day after that. Eventually, I heard through the staff grapevine that he'd quit without giving notice. Just stopped showing up, stopped answering calls from corporate, abandoned the job entirely. They promoted me to interim manager, gave me a substantial raise, and brought in a new overnight front desk person named Marcus to cover the position I'd been doing. I tried to warn him about the 3M crowd, but I couldn't find the right words. How do you tell someone their new job involves ghost members who died at the gym? So I just told him to leave the 3 a.m. people alone. Don't bother them. Don't try to check their memberships. Just let them do their thing and they'll leave at 4 a.m. Marcus thought I was being weird, but agreed. For 2 weeks, everything continued as it had. David, Rachel, and Thomas arrived at their scheduled times, completed their routines, and vanished. Marcus got used to it, even if he didn't understand it. Then one night last week, something changed. At 2:45 a.m., a fourth person arrived, a young woman maybe 23 or 24 years old with dark hair and a braid. She wore a teal tank top and black yoga pants. She scanned her card at the turnstile and walked through after getting a green light. I didn't recognize her. She wasn't part of the pattern. She headed to the yoga studio on the first floor, visible on one of my security monitors. She unrolled a mat, sat down in a meditative pose, and began what looked like a gentle stretching routine. At 3 a.m., Rachel arrived as usual, then Thomas at 3:10. Then David should have been at 2:50, but I realized he'd already come and gone before I'd noticed the new woman. The pattern was intact, just with an addition. I pulled up the system and searched for the new woman's membership using the timestamp from her card scan. Name, Emily Tran. Date of birth, November 15, 1999. Join date, November 8, 2021. Membership type, month-to-month. Last payment, December 10, 2021. Account status, expired. My stomach dropped. I already knew what I would find, but I searched anyway. Emily Tran's obituary was dated December 28, 2021, just 2 weeks ago. Emily Marie Tran, 23, passed away unexpectedly on December 28, 2021. Emily collapsed during a yoga session at FitLife 24/7 gym, where she was a regular member. Despite efforts by gym staff and emergency responders, she could not be revived. The cause of death was determined to be a brain aneurysm. Emily was a kind soul who loved yoga, meditation, and helping others find inner peace. She had died here, just like the others, during her workout, and now she was back. The 3 a.m. crowd had a new member. I watched her on the monitor. She moved through a series of yoga poses with the same mechanical perfection as the others, the same repeated routine, the same timing. At 3:50 a.m., she rolled up her mat and left, walking past the front desk without seeing me, walking to an empty parking space and fading away. I realized then that this would keep happening. Anyone who died at this gym during their workout would return, would join the others in their eternal routines, would become part of the 3 a.m. crowd. The building was collecting them, trapping them, creating a gallery of ghosts forever exercising, forever repeating their final moments. And I was the one who had to watch it happen. I've been looking for a new job, putting in applications, going to interviews. Because I can't keep doing this. Can't keep watching the list grow. But part of me wonders if it even matters, if leaving will change anything. Because those people are still here. Still working out at 3 a.m. whether I'm watching or not, and someday someone else will take my place at this desk, and they'll start to notice the pattern. The 3 a.m. crowd, the members who never change, never age, never stop coming, and they'll have to decide, just like I did, whether to stay or run.